this is a crew management guide for a 3NG Spire. First off, we have the top deck with Spanner, Mallet, Chems right now. The top deck will be shooting one of these two guns up here. Normally it's the left side gun, which has the best arcs. And, yeah, they'll be also trying to chemstring the hole. You want to try to chemstring the hole before you start shooting the guns. And, yeah, the pilot also helps rebuild the hole. Or repair it. Oftentimes, I'll go over there and give it a wrench. And then during the next gunner's reload, I'll tell, here, I'm gonna wrench the hole. When you reload, give the hole a mallet. Or give it a chem spray if necessary. But yeah, I want to try to keep this whole chem spray malleted. But yeah, the top deck's pretty simple. You can shoot either one of the guns depending on the situation. Right here, we just got a flare. So yeah, that's the top deck. Now next, we got two positions down here. Now they can vary, and their jobs can be similar. They have similar jobs. They can swap in between their jobs. And as a pilot, I try to tell them what to do. So first off, and depending on what type of Spire we are, if we are a lumber Spire right here, we bring kerosene. If we are flax Spire, we bring moonshine. Now, if we have moonshine, well, first off, if we have kerosene, the Spanner Mallet buff engine, the guy on the heavy gun, buffs the main engine first when he spawn in, if we have time, and then they run down here, load up their gun. And if necessary, in this situation, the buff engine would load up both the lumberjack and the light flak with Lesmark ammo. Lesmark, not grease. And they would pre-buff it. Meanwhile, when you first spawn in, the wrench buff engine jumps down to the bottom deck. You can jump down from the top deck to the bottom deck. They buff everything up here. A pre-buff on the balloon and stuff. You don't really need it's better to have a pre-buff on this balloon. Unless you're facing a lot of lumberjacks. But normally it's better to have a pre-buff on the balloon instead of a full buff. Well, it's better to have a pre-buff and no buff on the balloon than just to have a buff on the balloon and no pre-buff on the balloon when you start combat. Because as Spire, you are the second most maneuverable ship in the game practically. You can easily outmaneuver a lot of ships if you are careful, if you fly it right. If you need to, you call both your engineers down here, and they work together to buff the balloon. They buff everything down here. So oftentimes you'll be calling both the engines down here to buff and repair it. And a Spanner Mallet buff and a wrench buff can quickly buff and repair this bottom deck. And now, for example, when you're shooting, oftentimes you want to keep chemistry on the balloon. So before the guy goes to the light flak, they chemistry the balloon, and then run to the light flak. And they start shooting. Now, if chem's gonna run out soon, they go down. Oftentimes, they'll have stamina right here, and then they'll run back to the gun. Now, the lumberjack, oftentimes, this isn't as necessary, but you'll find yourself doing it. Sometimes, during the reload, they come over here, mount the balloon, run back to the gun. Remember to buff your guns during your reload, guys. Buff your guns during your reload, and during your whole reload, unless you're doing anything else. Repair first, repair your gun first, and then buff it. And during the whole reload. Now, let's say, for example, we're bringing moonshine. Then we switch it up. So the wrench buff buffs the main engine when they first spawn, and then they run down here, load up the guns if necessary, and pre-buff them. While the Spanner Mallet buff repairs and buffs the bottom deck. And when I bring moonshine, I also bring in an extinguisher on the balloon. That's for a slightly different reason. That's because with a heavy flak, when we bring moonshine, heavy flak kills so fast that we're not too worried about a bit of fire on our balloon. We're basically trying to kill them faster than we get disabled. And that's the goal of a heavy flak. So that pretty much sums it up. Sometimes you'll never ever have the wrench buff up here. And the wrench buff never comes to the top deck. You might have to Spanner Mallet buff up here if they're not doing anything useful. They don't have arcs, and you're taking a lot of damage. You're trying to avoid fire. You need this top engine buffed up. They'll be up here helping rebuild the armor, keep you alive, but never wrench buff down there. They're up here. But yeah, you'll often have both engines down here work together to repair and buff. And with Spire, you want all guns to shoot as much as possible. That pretty much sums it up. You're the second most maneuverable ship in the game, practically. You got good firepower, you're very vulnerable, you're extremely vulnerable to being disabled and killed. So you want to do as much damage as quickly as possible, and having buffed guns really helps. and buffed engines, buffed balloon. So yeah, go Spire. Go Spire.